All right. So we got the over in the Texas-Oklahoma game. Next one we want to dive into, Penn State, USC. Who is finally going to get over the hump? You feel like these two teams have kind of been like getting close, whether it was USC in the Pac-12, now going to the Big Ten, whether it's Penn State in the Big Ten, who's always couldn't get past Michigan, couldn't get past Ohio State. Actually, if it was a 12-team playoffs for the past decade, Penn State would have made the playoffs 6 times, but they just hadn't been able to get over the hump. Which team finally gets over the hump? All right, James Franklin. I know him very well. I know him since he was a coach at Maryland. He was an offensive coordinator before going to Vanderbilt, and now he's at Penn State, obviously. And then you got Lincoln coming off a bad loss last week versus Minnesota. If I'm going to be honest, when you look at matchups, this is not a good matchup for USC. Not a good matchup for USC. USC, they're starting a lot of freshmen on the offensive line. And those guys are going to develop, but they struggle against a pass rush. And Abdul Carter, who wears the double sticks, number 11 for Penn State, if you go back, a lot of legendary linebackers have wore that. We go back to LeVar Arrington and Micah Parson and, a couple other guys. So Abdul Carter, who wears the double six for Penn State, is a monster. He's going to be the best defensive lineman those USC tackles have faced all year. And granted, they struggled a little bit versus LSU, but they were able to overcome that. Had some problems versus Michigan. We saw how that panned out. How do they handle the pass rush for Penn State if you're USC? We'll see how Lincoln plans to overcome that. Lincoln's always been doubted for not being physical enough. Defensively, how are you going to stop the run with Nick Singleton for Penn State leading in that backfield? We'll see if Lincoln brings in tight ends, brings in extra backs just to chip, just to give Miller some more time. But it's going to be critical you get the ball in Zachariah Branch's hands this game, because you're going to need a playmaker. You're going to need a spark. You're going to need to find ways to control the game, keep that defense on the field, all right? And, really, really have a good defensive game plan. And you're home. You got Penn State traveling across country to play in this game. How are you going to find a way to bounce back? I'll tell you what. If USC loses, their playoff chances are done. I wouldn't say they're out of it just yet, because a win versus LSU, a win versus Penn State will still keep you in, especially if they could win out despite making the Big Ten championship because of their schedule. You get a win versus Penn State here, your chances are still in there to make the playoffs. But obviously, one of the main things we're going to stop the run. When you look at the Penn State side, Drew Aller, what a change in terms of development from last year. He's a guy that is dicing from the pocket, honestly, and he has a run game to go with it. That Penn State offensive line, there's clips of them just dogging and mauling UCLA defenders last week. Like I said, I don't think this is a good matchup at all for USC. I think, when you look at Penn State, they're going to run the ball. USC struggles with that. Drew Aller, we already talked about, he has that experience. Penn State's junior class, when they were freshmen, this was known as the best freshman class James Franklin has ever brought in. Now they're juniors, they're grown men, they're adults now. Is this the year for Penn State? We'll see. But which team finally gets over the hump is the question I have for this game. Two teams looking to finally make their mark. This is going to be a statement game one way or another. The line right now is -4 Penn State. Although I think Penn State will cover, I'm more confident with the total being at 50.5. I think both these teams are going to find ways to put up points. So I'm going to go over 50.5, Penn State, USC. Penn State, I'm not even going to say Penn State wins. I think they could win. I think they could cover. But I also think USC could find a way to make this interesting. And a reason why I think that is because of how they play versus LSU. So, with that being said, I'm more comfortable with the total, going 50.5, going over 50.5 for this game.